Okay, here's our hero door again. This is why I don't really have any respect for Jimmy Dore because there's this pretense he has a stance on something. Watch him balk at a stance for something that's really important.
This is from the Washington Post. You know the wage gap? They call it misleading. Here's the facts behind the 79-cent pay wage gap factoid. And every year since 2012, the Washington Post, their fact checker, has offered an explanation of this figure and why it's misleading. They give it two Pinocchios, the wage gap. They give it two Pinocchios. But according to this article, that's radical. You're radicalizing young boys. That was the first example that guy gave. Was the wage gap, and here it is bullshit from the I'm not saying it is real. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying
I'm not saying it is real. I'm not saying it's not. Way to make a stance. Why would you take this so-called neutral stance? Why are you playing at ignorance? Dore, you either believe in the wage gap or you don't. You either believe in what they say or you don't. Now he's saying, look, that's what they're saying, right? Not what I'm saying. Okay. So this is why Dore isn't for anybody. Because if you can't stand behind something as simple as the wage gap myth is a myth, then you're a coward. And all you guys who come in here and try and make out that, oh, he's just a comedian, but he's not talking about it in a comedic sense. He's pointing out that it's farcical that they're talking like this. So don't try and hide behind that. Now, I want to jump right to here to get to the point. Now, he's talking about Ben Shapiro, and we know that Ben Shapiro himself is kind of a cowardly little weasel himself. But the fact is, at least Ben Shapiro makes inflammatory statements. He makes a stand of what he wants. Dore can't do that. Now, we'll listen to the last bit of this and we'll add to it.
Washington fucking Post fact checker, the Jeff Bezos shitlib rag, the Washington Post, goes against the wage gap. Are you going to tell people not to read the Washington Post? Because it's going to radicalize young boys. No, a young boy's going to read the Washington Post, and he's going to go out and start saying stuff about the wage gap that's misogynistic. Because he read the Washington Post.
Yeah, misogynistic just means man who doesn't know his place. Men who don't bow down and take whatever lies are fed to them. That's what misogynist means.
Then someone might engage you in a comment thread and tell you to join their Discord group where the content gets darker and darker and it's edgy, she said. It's entertaining for some young guys, and before you know it, you've stumbled into an extremist subculture.
Well, that can happen, but first of all, there's two things going on. One, their idea of extreme is simply not being, like you say, it's not bending down to whatever the anti-male sentiment is. Actually standing up for yourself as a man will be called extreme. But two, there probably are extreme groups in there. And what do you expect when you attack young men, or men, period, I should say, and little boys? They're going to go wherever they feel it's going to be safe.
They got a target to blame all their problems on.
But they're not blaming problems on these guys. They're attacking men. See, Dore doesn't even know how to frame the issue right. This is men being attacked.
The allure of these hate groups is that they provide isolated young men with a sense of community and power, often for the first time in their lives, and give them a target, someone to blame for their challenges they perceive in their lives. You mean like what you guys are doing? How you guys are blaming YouTube for all your problems?
But these people aren't blaming YouTube for their problems. They're blaming YouTube. They're smearing YouTube because they want the narrative. They want the anti-male narrative to to be 100% and unchallenged.
Jesus Christ. A target to blame their problems on. A target to blame their problems on. You mean like, I don't know, like the patriarchy for incels? Gasp. Some young men may also see messages of empowerment for women and girls as an attack on masculinity, says Joanne Schrader, a writer whose work focuses on gender and media representation. I bet that she's a great writer.
And Dora won't be able to frame this properly either. It's not empowerment. This is stripping. This is an attack on men, and they use empowerment as a shield for it. That's why when guys hear the word empowerment, they know instinctively what it really means. They are attacking men.
I bet she writes fantastically. Oh my God. Maybe they see. So what you're saying, so she goes on, maybe they see Me Too stuff. Maybe they see a t-shirt or a bumper sticker that says the future is female. There are a lot of encouraging content out there for girls. And if young men aren't given an opportunity to talk through their feelings on this, they may see that as men are irrelevant.
First of all, that's not encouraging content. The future is female is ousting men. It's an attack on men. And it's not making men feel irrelevant. It's it's making men feel subhuman. Men are just not useful. This is a case where they are throwing men. Men don't care if they're useful, if they're accepted. What they're really saying is men are not going to be accepted in society.
That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's happening, but they may feel that way. So you're saying that young men see these goofy, outright hostile messages directed at them, and then they find a sense of community and not liking that together? Wow, you are an expert.
Well, Dora is making light of this, but at the same time, he's missing out things like hashtag kill all men and I drink male tears. Right? That's, like I say, he doesn't know how to frame the issue. This isn't simply that the future is female, which is bad enough. You know, when I drink male tears mugs or t-shirts saying kill all men, that is not encouraging the women, is it? It's not female encouragement or empowerment. So like I said, feminism is not a female supremacy movement. What it is a man-hating movement. And of course, no offense, but Dora doesn't get that. Or if he does get it, he's not going to frame it properly. Because as you saw at 13-minute mark there, he doesn't know if the wage gap are real or not. He's not saying it one way or other. That's very courageous non-stance, Jim.
Bateman and Schrader both agree that role models are critical to the healthy development of young men. They say it's important that parents are talking with their kids about the kind of content they consume online. While parents can't get ahead of all the technology their teens might use, Schrader said they can offer help by teaching them media literacy.
In other words, they have to brainwash their boys into thinking they're subhuman. And destroy their sense of self. They have to attack their own children. That's what they're saying.
And do it early on. Let me tell you, babies are more literate than their media literate than their parents. You ever see a baby with a fucking iPhone? You want to have an adult teach a kid about media literacy? Jesus Christ. We start doing media critique with them when they're quite young. Holy shit. So they have the skill to analyze something when it's put in front of them. As for Brown, he's now a fourth-year mechanical engineering student at Dalhousie University. He said he was able to avoid being pulled into more extreme content by using social media less often and instead reading literature. You mean he was able to handle that? You mean he was able to make up his own goddamn mind?
Yeah, this guy's a feminist. He's a male feminist, and he hates other men, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to fit into his feminist culture.
I
That's
think
not
the kid's
Go
I
ahead.
think he's probably a nerd with no friends, and he's a weirdo. Listen to the way he talks.
Okay, see, now this is very right wing. Weirdo. He's not a weirdo. He's a male feminist. Feminists have incredible social power. They get laws changed. They stop guys like this from giving his opinion on the wage gap. Hey, Dor, if these guys are just weirdos, how come you can't give your opinion on the wage gap, your personal opinion? How come a brave guy like you can't make a stance in the wage gap? So these guys aren't weirdos. And this guy might have all kinds of male feminist friends. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
He's like, he thinks that talking about the pay gap is misogynistic. He doesn't know.
But it is misogynistic if you go by the actual definition of misogynistic. These guys know by now that misogynistic just means that you are a subhuman male who doesn't know his place. They know it, and they've heard it enough. So this guy's got it wrong also.
What misogynistic is if he thinks that's misogynistic. You know, they talk about this being like a radical content pipeline. The radical content pipeline we have is what is leading kids and parents down to the mental state of thinking that it's normal to have hypersexualized teenagers on TikTok shaking their ass in front of the camera, or going to your middle school class and having a woman with like 50-pound tits walk out, fake tits walk out, and think everything's normal. Like that's the radical pipeline we're on. The extremist ideas is the woke ideology. That's what's extreme right now.
They're calling feminism woke. If they use the word misogynist, that's a feminist term. And radical in this case is just being able to make a stance and tell the truth, and you guys aren't even doing it. He can't get Dor here can't give his opinion on the wage gap. He's so scared. So these radicals aren't really radicals, are they? They're the mainstream. And this guy uses terms like woke. So you're too scared to tell the truth. So it's very mainstream. And these guys aren't weirdos, are they? They got you guys running scared.
It is pro-censorship. The extremists are really the pro-censorship people to me. And,
it always censors in that direction, though.
And that's right. And
no one censors more than you right-wingers. I'm sorry, you're a right-winger now. You've sold out to them. And guys like they talking about Ben Shapiro here earlier. Ben Shapiro will silence guys at a heartbeat.
And so these are the radicals, people who are pro-censorship, trying to convince you the people they want to censor are the radicals. That's what's happening here.
But it is radical to speak the truth because, again, like I say, you guys weren't able to speak the truth. So it is radical. For all their talk, Dor and company are part of the mainstream. If you want status and money, you've got to be a part of the mainstream, and there are certain things you will know not to talk about. And Dor just admitted in his own video, he cannot talk about the wage gap in an honest way. Or at the very least, if he does, he deflects it onto somebody else. He said, that's what they're saying. Not me, not the super dude, right? I'm not the super brave guy here. And this guy, right? So anyway, we'll end it here before we get to all his commercials. Go see me at this place or that place. But I'm telling you now, if even guys like Dor, even though he does tell the truth from time to time, this is his stop. Like, he'll actually talk about Ukraine, but once the women are against him, he knows to keep his mouth shut. Oh, both these guys. Thank you, everyone.